Welcome everybody. Welcome those in public forum as well, our members of the community. Nice to see you. So if we could open the meeting with that here, that'd be lovely. Very nice.
And straight on, just have to make a statement, a personal belief statement, that I believe there is one true God, God in heaven, who made all things.
You want to know something? I believe that. So there you go.
Perhaps we could say it in English as well as to next to me.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's necessary. I mean, we're good.
Yeah.
It's not contained with the here.
Well, it's an affirmation of the time.
Yeah,
It's an affirmation, isn't it? Maybe in English.
it's lovely. Any apologies?
All meetings present.
Up for Caroline, would you like to come forward?
Give my hand. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I'm fine, and I'm here today on behalf of Thames Museum, Te Whare Taonga o Te Kororanga. And I've asked for this opportunity to update you regarding a project you provided funds for in the 2019-2020 financial year. That was for the museum for a gallery. Although the format of the original project was put on hold when I became the chair last November, we retained the intention of preparing a display which creates a timeline of our area's evolution or development. And we have explored various formats and ideas and have now settled on a way forward. Work has already begun in the display area. The walls have been prepared and a part of the 2019-2020 grant that you granted us has been used, and the drafts of the storyboards have been created. So plans for improving lighting, new flooring and upgraded security for the overall museum situation are underway, and we have obtained funding to cover this as well. Our intention is to begin the timeline with a geological history of the Coromandel Peninsula, and this will lead into our Taonga Gallery. This is being prepared at the moment with assistance from Ngāti Maru Iwi. Within the Taonga Gallery, the display will evolve through the Ngāti Maru collection to other artefacts and an interactive area for younger visitors. This gallery will then lead out into the post-1769 part of our area's history, relating to the arrival of Europeans, the discovery of gold, and the town's development through into the 20th century. So in view of our recent application for a community board grant to assist with the preparation of the Taonga Maori Gallery, I wish to reassure you that the previous grant that was carried over, the delays in this were partly because of the change of chairman, but also because of the COVID lockdown situation. So that money is now being spent. So I just wanted to reassure you that I've applied for more money, but we are spending the previous grant at the moment. And it's our view that the Timeline Gallery, in conjunction with the Taonga Maori Gallery, will contribute greatly to the museum's standing as a heritage attraction, and that this will be a benefit to the whole town. Any questions?
So there's a little bit that I saw the other week.
Yes, in the dark.
Behind the table.
Yeah.
In the dark. What was that?
So what we have there is a model of Te Todra Pa, which was created in the 1960s by a man called Doug Pick. And Doug took this model of the Pa, which is over 3 metres long and about 1.5 meters wide, this sort of space here. He took it around schools and explained to children how the Pa was constructed, how the palisades were put in place, what went on in the Pa, and so on. When Doug didn't want the Pa anymore, it went to Cambridge Museum. And when they didn't want it anymore, Ngāti Maru accepted it. And then it came to the museum for safekeeping. And it's been in our storage for about 5 years, I think. And now we've moved it out and we're going to repair it. And the men's shed are going to help us build a base for it, and then it will be the centrepiece of the new gallery.
Carolyn, this doesn't mean you're going to get rid of the lens and
No,
thing, because it's
don't worry.
grandkids love that. That's fantastic.
I just want to congratulate you because it just seems as Aotearoa New Zealand, as we move forward in our evolution as a country, to have that timeline and to acknowledge what went on before us totally arrived is really, really important. And so thank you for embracing that and for developing a partnership with Ngāti Maru. It feels really special for me. Thank you.
Excellent, Mr.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. The team, I'd like to emphasise that it is teamwork.
Oh, yes, yeah,
Big team.
absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
So mover and seconder to thanks, Rob. Thanks, Paul. Any items not on the agenda? Everyone happy? Good. Conflicts of interest? Relating to the agenda, anyone got any conflict?
Can I just go back a bit straight? Are you going to talk about Mary Street and the pedestrian crossings because you did write a?
I'll bring it to my members report.
Okay.
Minutes for confirmation.
I'll move. I'll see.
Are you going to write on that?
Yes.
Yes.
The 3.1. The resolution recommends the council that the annual development design specification adopted for the Thames effective. It was actually a real recommendation. It wasn't just the design concepts, it was also the lease document and the whole, the
Right, yeah.
the council. So, yeah.
It was approved, I think, because we got it with minutes for confirmation.
Right, so it's different. No, yeah, right.
Sorry, Vicky, can I, is it appropriate, can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
So that, the deed of lease for 20 years with the road renewal and 7,000 grand trustees fee, is that what's been decided for the hangars? Or is that a separate lease for some other part of the deed?
No, that's related to the hangars.
Yeah.
But there is currently a valuation taking place to just determine that that is a
Okay,
Reasonable.
Yeah.
right. Is that sort of in conjunction with the tender, with the process that went out to tender?
I think these will cover that off in the work program, getting up that one year fairly. That is right.
All right, thank you. So there being no matter to welcome, we have a moving statement. Thank you very much. So moving to the first item, which is 2.1. That's page 17. Your agenda. First, to install temporary art installation in Campbell Street Reserve with the licensed title by thanks directors.
Thanks. So good morning, board. This paper is fairly self-explanatory. I'd like to point out that Rose has actually done most of the work behind this in terms of the site assessment and Rose prior to the paper being written. But basically, it's an assessment of two sites. We'll hone it down in terms of which site is the preferred one. That's preferred by the artist and TPAC, and also the actual location on the site as well. So we're asking for a resolution to progress forward, and part of that would be a licence for occupying, and of course the trust would have to apply for a resource consent as well. Okay.
Thanks, Derek. Otherwise, you'll take it as being read.
Correct. Yes.
The preferred option is the apex site of the Campbell Street.
Yep.
Designations. And there is a recommendation, quite a lengthy one. That I presume would be what's required. Is anyone got any queries related to that recommendation?
So I live quite close to the Campbell Street site, and I do often see people sitting at that table that's there. I think it's quite iconic because it's concrete and it's got almost sort of like little mushroom type seats and things. I just wanted some sort of reassurance that the picnic table, that there would always be a picnic table there. So like when that one's, or the concrete one's taken out, but another one's put in.
Yes.
I know it sounds picky, but.
No, that's your point. We are aware of usage. However, that said, it's really it's like we have to take repairs to it because the rebar's starting to expand, etc. So the rebar, so it's a concrete table. So inside the concrete is metal, and that metal's starting to deteriorate. It's rusting, and as it rusts, it expands the concrete. So it does need to go. This is a good location for the artwork. We can put it into that site, and we can put a picnic table further into the site, and that's part of the mantra of bringing people into that site.
And so was the idea that the picnic table would be more to trees because it's not going to disturb the roots, but the sculpture would be closer out away from the tree?
Yes, and more obvious to pass by.
Right.
There was also some discussion that the new picnic table would be more accessible. It would have, instead of the seats all the way around it, that there would be space for wheelchairs.
Yes, so when we look at replacement of assets, we look at the accessibility issues as well. Sometimes we can't do that, and so it doesn't make sense to create an accessible picnic table. But where we have a site where there is relatively easy access, we leave one of the arms off the picnic table, and we look at how that picnic table is actually reached from by arms.
Happy to move.
Thank you. Second. All done.
Thank you all. Very good to see you again.
Well done, Rose.
That was very comprehensive, I want to say, so thank you.
Thanks for reading the report. Raised permission request from community group of council property. A bit more involved this month, but hello, how are you?
Hi there.
Hi.
How are you?
I've seen some of these faces before, so some are very new. I'm Judy, the rates team leader. So hello to the board. So I'm here just with the report for the rate commission for supporting community and sporting groups, non-profit. So the Thames area have had 12 applications, and I take the report as being read, but 12 applications, and 9 of those qualify. 9 don't meet the qualification to actually do it under this policy, and 3 of them do. They have met the criteria. We've also got four groups that actually met it but haven't actually applied. So there is actually the policy hasn't changed at any time throughout the years, I guess, but it has actually now being a little bit more transparent, we want to make sure that these funds are going through the correct channels. And so that was the reasoning behind the report. So mainly what we want to just put out there is that there are some alternatives to the people that only pay service rates, which would not fall under this policy. Give them the opportunity to apply in another remission policy, possibly under miscellaneous purposes. And for that, we mean that if there's some groups have actually got multiple PN on their property, which is usually the higher costing of the service rates, to allow them to be able to apply under miscellaneous purposes under fair and equity. One place that they've got 7 PNs in there, they're going to pay 7 times the charge, where another group have only got 1. So is it fair that just because they've got 7 PNs? So it's something that we need to obviously take into consideration, and that is a remission policy that could be looked at that situation. The other option is under the financial hardship, to actually look at whether this is going to put the group into a financial hardship position. Then there is another policy to look under that situation. So Donna has requested part of the resolution could be to contact all of the groups that don't meet the current criteria and are able to go under the other ones and request them, if they want to actually apply under there. So are there any questions relating to this?
Yeah, so in the suggested resolutions, the amount of remission is total is $3,000 on the summary sheet.
So
but on the spreadsheet, it's 7,200. Is there a mismatch between those two numbers, or?
let me just.
Sorry? Well, on there, we're recommended to lodge records in Washington Thames SPCA. Total $3,000 commission on the spreadsheet. The total is 7,200. I'm just not.
Is that including the ones that meet the criteria but haven't been invited?
That haven't applied.
Yeah.
So the ones on the front applied, or the $3,000 that you're mentioning are the ones that have actually applied and met the criteria. And the $7,000 includes the 4 groups that haven't applied. That could possibly.
So that's our total exposure is $7,000. Is
Yes.
that what that's telling me?
So the 100% remission we could actually put under was the 7,000 that we could go through with, if it's approved by the board, and that will be obviously a local. They'll go through the remission policy under Section 6, and then all the ones that don't qualify are the ones that we're going to try to go back to and give them another alternative to apply under a different remission. If I can just make mention, yesterday from the Whangatar board meeting, Ken has given me permission to pass on this information, is that they've also taken the approach that if they would do an out of cycle budget report to actually increase the grant remission to actually do this, and what they've asked us to do is go back to all the groups that haven't actually met the criteria, give them the option to go under the other 2 remissions. And if they are declined under those other 2 remissions, the hardship and the miscellaneous purpose, then they would actually possibly go for an out of cycle budget report. So the difference obviously being it's either locally funded or it's district funded. So that's what we need to take into consideration as well. So do we want the rest of the district to obviously pay for the community board sports from Thames, and vice versa? Does Thames want to pay for the Whangatar community sports? So we need to take that into consideration in making that option.
Does that money the waters?
Sorry?
Does that money the waters? To some extent, we're going back to putting in front of all the options.
Yes. Yeah.
Does it muddy the waters?
Rewarded?
Does it muddy the waters?
Make it complicated.
Oh, yes, it makes it quite tricky. And because it's obviously public, it'll be a public notifiable in our reports. then it is going to be that people don't want to pay for other community boards and things. So, yeah, but I just want to put that out there and clearly say, make it mention, so that we're all on the same page.
Okay, so can I just clarify that what we're seeing here at 7,200
Yes,
is the result of applying accurately the policy that we have in place.
that's
So
correct.
it's a policy that's in place, gone through the $7,600.
That's correct.
Thank you. Supplementary. The four, do we know why the four haven't applied? Is it likely oversight or they may not need it?
They may not know about it, although all of the boards actually did receive a letter from Nicole from property to advise them of this remission policy. And were asked to actually apply if they wanted to go for to apply under that certain policy. So I don't think it's that they didn't know about it. It just may be, and I'm just surmising, is that they may not need it at this time, or they may think that because it's been paid for the last 3 years, they may not have had to reapply.
Yes.
And I think that may be the more accurate result.
And they won't have got, the treasurer won't have got the bill yet. And once they get the bill,
Yeah.
or when the secretary will suddenly find the letter stored in miscellaneous correspondence.
So anyway, likely proactive measure, contacting.
Yes.
Similar thing.
Yeah, so definitely we will go back to the ones that do meet the criteria and advise them that they have met the criteria, and then ask them to apply under that
Yes.
situation. Yeah.
Thanks, Judy. Martin? Yeah.
So is looking at the spreadsheet with the blue on it under comments that, so it's got non-rateable service charges only. So is that when the rates bill that they're getting is only got service charges?
That's correct.
And that the policy we have doesn't apply to service charges?
That's correct, yes. It's only, the policy only applies to the general rates.
Yeah.
Where service charges are not in that policy to actually be remitted. So, and the property is non-rateable due to obviously being part of there's 25 different options of why the TCDC property can be non-rateable. And the service charges are always payable regardless if that property is leased. If it's not leased to someone, then TCDC pay those service charges. Yeah.
Yep, no, that's good.
Right.
Clarifies it.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
And again, I think the proactiveness of yes, these groups are going to be getting a bill this year, and I think us being proactive about how we respond to that is good.
Yeah.
So we have a suggested resolution.
Yes, page 25.
Yeah, right. So can I just ask one more question of Judy?
Yes.
So Judy, what's the timeline? So Tongatawa is making a different decision to us potentially. So what's the timeline and how do we get to decide or influence whether our ratepayers pay for a locally funded thing? Well, obviously not like that, but just like in a different ward. So you did mention that Tongatawa come to a different decision.
That's right. It is obviously that's step 5 for them.
Yeah.
To go through obviously a few more different resolutions first before they get to that stage.
Yeah.
Pardon me. I'll work really closely with Nicole from property and go back out to these community groups. Pardon me, sorry. And then once we've come up with the hard figures of these are the groups that are definitely going to go under this revision policy or they're going to apply under a different one, and then bring that back to you and the next meeting. And bring it back to the board to make sure that you are aware of the outcome of how many groups are going under the current policy, or how many may need further help from the board. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
Okay, there's a suggested resolution in front of you. And I think it requires any amendment, so just need to move it. Thanks, Claire. Yeah. Second, thanks, Cheryl. So, mover and second, those in favour? That might. Okay.
Awesome.
Well done.
Very much. Lots of work done on that.
Well done. Very good report too.
That's thanks to Donna.
The 4.1 board program report. Thank you, Joyce. How are you? Good, thank you. Good to see you.
Great. So much great.
Good morning, all. So the first work program for the financial year, as you can see, dated 1st of July, we made some slight tweaks to the formatting, which is probably won't notice, just the way we grouped the projects to make it easier to kind of go through, which is good. And obviously, the other thing I'll mention is that the financial runnings of council, we pretty much run like a 13-month financial year. So July, even though it's the start of the new financial year, is the month that we actually close everything off on the previous year. So basically, doing July is spent finalising and closing off, doing the component reports, doing all the final invoices and all that stuff for the previous year. So you don't get too much actually done on this year's program until you get to August. So the team's kind of input now. There's obviously stuff happening, but focus on closing it out. So, so when we come to your next board meeting, you'll see money will have been spent and there'll be a lot more progress and there'll be a lot more confirmed details and stuff at one stage. So that's just what I.
So they're looking like shouldn't be suspicious about it all being green.
No, I hope that it would all be green when we just kind of landed the budget on 1 July. Having said that, some of the boards have got a couple of reds in there, luckily you guys don't, but projects which have been ongoing, they've already got a challenging time frame or something. So some of the other boards do have a couple of reds on them, etc. But so far it's all good and Thames on green. So, but anyway, I'm happy to take any questions and do my best to provide answers.
I wondered about the car park area outside of the what's the kind of this?
No, it wasn't. No, we discussed that as part of the LTP build-up. We discussed that car park, which has obviously had those old chippings put on it. It's very rough. I can't remember the dollars, but it was quite a lot to do the car park, well, something like that. Yeah. So from memory, I think the board made a prioritisation decision to say, the must do versus the nice to have. So we can actually hold off on that. It's not nice to drive on, but it is what it is, and we can hold off for a few more years on that. The other thing is that we need to. There is a comment came up the other day regarding the lease, the main lease of Rhodes Park, which the Rugby and Sports Club has, and around what the obligations are under that lease. And so I just need to go away and have a look at that and just see what the rules and obligations are under that lease, which I think, from memory, has been in place for years and years and years. But it's probably time for a pull it out and have a look if it's still valid or not. So, but anyway, at this stage, we don't have any plans to do that car park that was cut out. So the money used in here is again, it's just resealing. So it's resealing the Danby Field car park.
So the car park is part of that lease, obviously.
It is, yeah, and I'm just not sure what the obligations are around it, so I don't actually know.
I just wondered why we could see a Danny Field car park when it looks really good and you can put that one in there. It's just, and is it not possible to just throw some chip over it so that it?
Definitely not. No, so it's a much bigger job, and the reason we're resealing Danby, and this is the question we get when we're doing the roads, is obviously the resealing, and apologies if you're already well aware of these technical facts. The reason we reseal is all about waterproofing and keeping water from getting into it, and so the surface will generally look quite good, but what you have is you have very fine cracks starting to open up in between all the chip and the seal. So you've got to get in time, reseal that, and provide that waterproofing again. If you don't do that, try and sweat the assets like we see sometimes on the state highways. Water gets in and it just breaks up all the base or the foundation of the formation of the road or the car park, and then you've got to redo the whole thing. You've got to mill it all out. So it's important that we get in and just do that reseal on that, so we don't end up with that bigger cost. And as I say, it's a much bigger cost to deal with the Danby Field, the Rhodes Park one. So.
So I just had a question around the Thames Airfield. I see there's 2 points there. One talking about the geotech investigations.
Yes.
Help inform work required to improve runway. So those runways were drained drains and things were put in a couple of years ago.
Yes.
I think the last winter was the first winter that they had all the way through those in the whole.
Correct.
Yeah. So was this is that more sort of looking towards, where it's required to eventually seal?
Really, no. So what it is from memory, if my memory serves me correct, is it's, you're right, Martin, all that drainage work was done. First winter last year that we got all the way through with it open. But from memory, some of the geotech work that's happening at the moment is that it's got a very big crown on the runway. And so, you know, that helps with drainage, and it's actually it's probably two crown.
That's dodgy to land on.
If the planes are landing, if they get off the centre, because it's got a very steep kind of gradient, it can lead them off, and so it's about getting the right balance. I think what we're looking at doing is flattening that crown out a bit, but still obviously need a crown. So I believe that's what that geotech work is.
So just based on the meeting that I was at yesterday, yes, that is the case. And in addition, when that crown was formed, they did one end of the runway with fill from somewhere, and they did the other end of the runway with that same lot of fill, and then had the bit in the middle. And they used a different fill, and the runway is currently closed because that bit in the middle is solid. So part of this is to remove that crown and get a consistent consistent surface right away the whole 1 kilometre.
Right.
It's quite important, isn't it?
Also totally off track, just good.
Yeah. So just related to that. Would seem to me that 107,000 won't be sufficient to actually put power into where we would expect in the next 12 months to have some hangers being built.
Right, yeah. I don't have all the details on that, no, sorry. From memory, initially, the first thing that was happening was it was just getting the water in. Yeah, so they were going to get the water in to supply water to those hangers. And you had some discussion on power, and I just can't recall the details, sorry, but I just can't recall what the details were on the power.
Okay, well,
yeah. Unless you know.
Well, no, I don't.
Okay.
But I'm looking at the, hey, prove the hangers, wanting a hanger get to go tomorrow sort of thing, which the hangers will need power and will need water. There doesn't seem to be enough money in this to do either.
Yeah, so water is a separate project, so we've got the line for water, because they'll get the district water projects, so the water's in there. The power isn't, and I stand to be corrected, and I'll go away and find out and come back to the board. I can click an email. But I had this strange, funny feeling that there wasn't going to be power to the hangers, and at this stage they were at least unpowered hangers. You know, watchdown, but I'll have to double check that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But water is in a different.
Yeah, water in our water budget. Yeah. I'll make a note and I'll give it on the board about that.
So we've got how will that negate the functionality of that thing?
One thing at the moment is they're getting a report about power.
Yeah.
Based on the ultimate development of the airfield, so all the commercial stuff, and all the hangars and everything, what would be required, and the expectation is that the report will come back and show how to phase that, given the fact that accommodation hangars are years away, as opposed to aircraft only hangars being here tomorrow. So
that's sure. Yes. Thanks, Beck. All in hand. That's the main thing, isn't it?
Well, things are happening in terms of going.
Yeah, things are moving forward.
Any other matters arising from?
Yeah, I just had a query about the Tokoroa Valley extension. And I know I remember asking you about this. I just think, I mean, that's quite a major project. I think it's the second biggest one after, no, that is the biggest one.
Yeah.
I just wonder if it would be useful for the board to get a little bit more information, maybe see some plans, maybe go out for a visit.
Yep.
Out to it, because people are going to, as soon as the trucks and things start turning up, people are going to be asking us.
Asking you questions.
What's involved and what's happening.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Sally and Robin and myself did a little drive up there 2 or 3 months ago, but we didn't really know what we were looking at.
And I'm already getting inquiries about how many houses can I build on my bit of land? And it's right down the bottom. I'm not sure. And so it's got planning implications for people as well as the engineering. So I think I really endorse that. And I think the other thing which I'm guessing, and it could be just me, but I don't understand Thames South Water properly either, in terms of what that means for those communities. And they're quite quiet communities in terms of their engagement with us. They're not quiet in terms of themselves. And I think we need to do them justice by understanding that as governance people.
So we've got the Thames South Water on the workshop today.
Yeah.
And we'll give you lots more run through. So my suggestion, what's going to be next, should we do another workshop next time on the Totra Valley?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Because I'll get Brian, some of Brian's team on planners, so they can talk a little bit about the plan. So we can talk about the infrastructure. Maybe if we have someone from planning, they might be able to shed a bit of light on that point you're raising, Sarah.
Yeah.
We can run you guys through it, and again, happy to have a site visit out on site, and anyone who can make it, shoot out the head at any time, just to kind of run you guys through it. And again, when you see the plans and then get out on site, it'll come together.
That's cool.
So,
I think the street lighting, that's quite straightforward, but just for your information, there's on Facebook at the moment, it seems that people are reporting repairs needing to be done and they're not being done.
right.
So
Yeah, it's a real challenge. Like, so we say to people, because they're our street lights, call in the council if they're not working, and then what happens gets passed through the power code. And what happens then is it normally sits for a while, because it's normally, if it's a bulb, then that's easy. We'll get our street light person to go out and resolve it. But if it's a streets out, there's normally some bigger issue around fuses and power supply, and it goes into the power code request for service, and then they normally schedule things in a group of things, and so often you end up with street lights out for a few weeks at a time. And yeah, so it's a bit of a split across us. We own the assets, but they supply the power, and when they go out, if it's more than one, it'll 99% of the time it's the power code issue.
okay.
So, but that's good to know. Like, the other thing is that sometimes we do end up having to chase them and put pressure on them to get out there if it's dragging on and on weeks and weeks. So I'm happy to find that out. Yeah, it's not ideal. No, it's not ideal.
Is there like any sort of performance indicators for how long they're supposed to?
Yep, so they have like I don't know if you call it like a customer contract or charter, for their customers. I can't think what it is off the top of my head, but they have standards in there that they'll try and meet. I think often when you look at those, they're often vague or quite extended, and it's that situation where everyone knows their local community board rep and their councillor. And so all our service standards are quite tight because everyone's on us straight away, whereas with those bigger entities, often they can get away with having get there within 3 weeks or something, you know what I mean, where we never get away with that. So anyway, so I don't know what the timeframes are off the top of my head, but if there are areas, I'm happy to send them through, and I'll make sure we get an RFS loaded, even if it's a second one to give them a bit of pressure on.
Bruce, just yes. At the bottom of the road, there is a subdivision.
Yes.
I see that part of the extension work relating to Thames Valley subdivision starts over the road, which has always been the restriction or the impediment relating to any further subdivision taking place. Up the road, top of the road. I mean, the comments that I've always had are, the roading cost would just squashing opportunity. So that's sort of happening now in terms of our extensions to there.
Yeah.
But just in terms of the stormwater and water and what is that? And stuff like that. Does it go to the end of the road or
the end of Sawmill
Road, or it's not clear?
Yeah.
If there were going to be a subdivision, the end of Sawmill Road with those landowners, does the infrastructure or provisions of stormwater and that go right through to the boundary board?
I'd have to double check on Sawmill Road, because obviously we're quite focused on Totra Valley Road and heading up the valley as opposed to going to the Sawmill Road. But I know what you're talking about.
There's opportunity there, big opportunity.
Yeah, and I think
if you're upgrading the road, Sawmill Road, you are upgrading the Sawmill Road.
There's some upgrading happening on Sawmill Road. I don't know exactly what that entails, but I can come back to that detail in the workshop. At least.
Oh, well, that'd be part of our workshop.
Yeah, have a much better handle on exactly what we are doing. I think it will pick up that stuff. We will be putting services in to facilitate some of that development, but obviously any subdivision, they'll need to front up with some infrastructure as well. So, but we can run through that in a bit more detail.
Okay, thank you.
Please, a little while ago, to I saw my voting was on our thing.
Is it dropped off? It's not big.
One voting.
I'll follow up actually, yeah. I can't recall off the top of my head, but
I think that was 2
it's seen, yeah, I thought so. too.
Yeah.
But the rank
Because it's-
itself is just, well, it's just unusual. I mean, it doesn't have enough of a drop off anyway, so we had 5 surgeons and all that kind of stuff. It just rocks just end up all on it. People are reluctant to, reverse down it and people are etc. But
Yeah.
even if there was a program, I don't know if there was
I'll follow up.
a program maintenance where it can be sweet or
It's possible.
particularly when we get to this, summer peak time.
Yeah,
And what I'm going to say is most locals at summertime, particularly in that summer peak period, they don't want to use work well because anybody else is using.
yeah, sure, yeah. Yeah, I think I'll go and check because it's probably just slipped off the list because there's another one over in Tyrone, we boat around the same time, like, and I thought we had both those on there, so I'll check on that one. It could also be the same as that Ruamahanga that we did last year, which was we've got to get the consent in there before we can actually do anything to it. So they're old historic ramps with no consent, you've got to consent them, and then once you've got a consent, then you can actually start working on and making improvements if you've got the budget to do that. So
So did you get consent for one?
yeah, so they went through that process with that one and got that sorted, yeah. But again, we're not planning any upgrades at this stage for that. I have to go and check. Yeah, I can't recall off the top of my head, sorry.
Quite a long time.
Yeah, they'll be fairly long time. They'll be maybe 20 years or something like that, I would say. But I'll double check on that one.
If you're going to work on roofs in the bay, you really want to sort out the exits, don't you?
Well, that was the reason.
The in and out is terrible, and it's, it almost needs a loop.
Yeah, and I think,
Yeah.
if you recall, we had those conversations around with Sammy Lynn as well, that NZTA won't get another NZTA onto the state highway. You can't have that movement. So we had a number of different options, and I think the board selected the correct option at that time, which was let's just pull back, get a consent in. And obviously we're legal,
They're not
Illegal.
because it's that corner.
Yeah. Too dangerous.
But what might be a good idea is if they could put one of those mirrors up.
Yeah.
So that if they actually do come out of Ruamahanga can actually
Can see, yeah.
see.
Yep.
But certainly that ramp itself is also a problem.
All right. Any other matters arising from?
Great to see the logos.
Yeah, and Anya's doing a great job. She's looking at how we improve the way we're doing things as well around the book purchasing, which will free up some more time to get involved in some other things, free up some of their time. So the providers who provide the books will actually provide a bit of a service for a small fee. Where they actually will come up with a list of books and submit it through for approval and stuff before you do it, rather than you having to sit there and go and pick every individual book that you want to order. So yeah.
And just as a little aside to the library, they just in the process of employing someone for one of the positions that was funded by the National Library.
Yeah.
I think as a part of, was it part of COVID or was it pre-COVID? Part of COVID. We had to make sure that we were at a certain level to be able to get that funding, and yeah, from what I've heard, this person is just about to be employed using that funding, so it's good to know that we were able to get that.
It's good.
That's good, yeah. All right, there'll be no further clarification. A move and second, that.
Yeah.
Move and second. Thank you. Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
Would you be here for our members' report or?
Sure will, yep.
Oh, yes, okay. Let me get back up here and see it. That's on. Action section. 1.1. Package is being read. Only matters that wasn't. Only one open aspect only two.
Yeah,
Two open.
I just had a query on that Thornton Bay culvert. It might be back to Bruce.
Yeah, I should have stayed at the front now. So despite what's happening this Friday with Jamie Boiler, coastal site, like Coach A and one of our project guys.
Oh,
Yes, that's like the member that you probably know, but it's not something that's big, but if they extend that area to provide more parking in the community, just tidy up with the water out there.
Yeah, I think putting an extension on the.
Yeah, extension on the park and crap, but that area is right along.
Is it, would it be appropriate for the people who raised, I think it was Peter and James, for them to know that you guys are coming up soon?
Well, pretty hot. Yeah, I mean, it's fine, but generally it's, my preference would be we meet with the agency when he wants to go to A on site.
Oh,
And
okay.
then maybe we have another meeting with them to explain what the options are and what we might do.
Okay.
Because, yeah.
I might just mention it to them, I'll see them this weekend, I might just, there was a meeting on Friday.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Any other matters arising from that? There being none, I'll move and second the floor, please.
Yeah, I'll move that.
The move is Sylvia and second, Teresa. Thank you very much. 9:45 already. This is members report, because that's 1.2. We were on the table with anything that we can use to highlight, please.
So, Teams working with one tonight. So I'm having reports today. And then also the Team Valley League ones on Friday, and we've got a couple of teams team from that. So looking forward to playing as well.
In the finals, good stuff. Yeah.
I've also performed some official duties, which has been pretty exciting and pretty nice. The opening of the Broad Street toilets.
Yeah.
But what really do look like they have always been. As a refurbished temporary community hall, which is a welcome and timely for the Thames Coast. Hall is now open for business and fit for people. I represented the mayor and recent Whakamarawatama of the Thames COVID Vac Centre in Goldfields. Obviously, the centre will be the most open viewed vac centre that we have here in Thames. And I'm pretty certain that the centre will do its fair share, if not more, vaccinating our community. I believe they do about 200 a day, which is pretty good. Thames Rugby 150th anniversary is this weekend, and I'm really looking forward to attending the Friday night All Black Legends on the couch.
Yeah.
I might have to on the couch.
With the All Blacks.
Saturday, 10:15, versus Barbarians, which would be quite cool too. There's a few, I want to call them Thames veterans that are talking about playing as well. I don't know if they should, but they're going to. The dinner, the Saturday anniversary dinner, I'm sure that's going to also be a pretty special function with some more legends. And I think the event's going to be huge. Many of our own old Thames rugby legends are returning to town, and we were really sick of past rugby days and all their old injuries and stuff. But I think it's going to be amazing.
Sure. very much. Robin?
I've been on holiday, so I don't have a lot to report.
That's going in your life.
So it's the time of year that we get to go to AGMs. So I've been to a few of those. One significant one was the Thames Business Association, had their AGM at Gastronomics. And they set out their vision and mission about how they want to proceed. And yeah, I think we'll all be wanting to keep an eye on how that was implemented. And they, yeah, the TBA are going to be issuing invoices, I think either this week or next week. There was a period last year with COVID where they allowed for businesses that were specifically affected by COVID as far as hospitality and accommodation to not pay their fees, but they basically going to be saying, well, that they can't continue to do that. And the other thing with the TBA is that Goldfields, that the business after fire last night, they announced that the new Goldfield manager is going to be paying the TBA fee for all the businesses within Goldfields. And that was welcomed by people. And also, still talking about Goldfields, they're looking at doing a farmers market in conjunction with Rotary. It's going to be starting in September within the Goldfields car park. And yeah, the new manager there, I think, is certainly, he seems to have the trust of the owner. So it's being allowed to try a few different things to try to get Goldfields back up to the level they should be at.
Is that going to affect parking, Martin?
It's going to be on a Sunday, and I believe it's going to be down more near the end, because the council actually owns the corner of the car park closest to the roundabout.
Right.
So as long as they don't have the market on that corner, then it's just a private car park. So
Once a month.
yeah, once a month, I think.
Thank goodness, yeah.
Maybe every fortnight, closer to Christmas or something.
And the idea of being so the board was right now.
Yes, they'll move into the food court, 10 court area there.
Well, that's up to them, something to make it happen. Yep.
I also took the opening of the COVID centre in Goldfields. And
Still failed,
sorry?
Still failed.
Yes. And they moved the time forward for people of a certain age to get their jabs, and I was then eligible for that, and so I booked one day and turned up the next and had my first jab. So yeah, I've got a little clicker thing, but I don't know where the sticker's gone. And my next one's a month time, so looking forward to that. And yeah, also just about the rugby celebrations, I was supposed to be helping out doing the sound and lighting for that, but my wife booked a wonderful weekend in Hawke's Bay and other lighting type things. I'll be around for one of our team players that step up to the plate.
Yeah, I think there's the Jack Ransom or something.
Yeah, I think it's going to be cool.
I think it's true.
Shame I can't be there. And that's all for me.
So I called in and saw Glenys Bell, who's the new manager of Age Concern here, and we had quite a long chat actually about networking and what we can do and that sort of thing, and how I can support them in any way. Also had a chat with Nikki Tyrrell Baxter of St John, who St John was a spearhead for the Thames Connect, which is the new name, I'm not so new now, but the Social Isolation Forum. And how we can perhaps gain some traction on that. There's an age-friendly fund round open from the Office for Seniors. It requires council buy-in, and the grants are between 5,000 and 15,000, and it closes on the 4th of October. So we have another community board meeting before then, and I'm just having chats with them about what ideas they've got that we can perhaps, make an application for that funding, because it would seem a pity to just let it go by. We can possibly attract some of that funding and get something done for older people in the community. So, and the other thing was I attended Peter Pan, imagine. It was gorgeous. It was really lovely. So much fun. So yeah. It's always good to go to those things.
Yeah.
Thank you. There was a group of us that met with the mayor, was the Japanese Council General, who was visiting all the towns and cities who have relationships with Japanese. That was interesting. And I think as a board, we have to think about what are we going to do with that relationship to enhance it, to make it very clear. There has been a clear focus in the past about young people coming to the high school. Sandra included some economic developments, things around potential, farming of agriculture, which isn't the proper name for it. And so I thought it was useful, but let's not forget that we have got that relationship. Just in terms of the last council meeting, 3 Borders is a national issue which you'll will be reading about in the papers, etc. There's a workshop for councillors where the staff right now, we're in an 8-week period where staff are investigating the information that they've got, etc. And that's going to be shared at that workshop, which is somewhere in the 20th of August somewhere. So I think that will have major implications for our communities, and we'll do our best to keep you up to date. And I'm not sure how community boards are going to be formally part of that, but it is a council decision, but you really need to know about it a lot. In the final wrap up for the last financial year will be a surplus. Right now it's sitting at around the 5.5 million, but there'll be adjustments as depreciation and things and final invoices get paid, but they think within $1 million either side of that. 81% of the project work was achieved in 64% of out-of-cycle projects, and that's a high percentage in terms of achievement for projects. After trading, we didn't change the policy, and that's going out now for public consultation. So that's just, I think, rough, and correct me if I'm wrong. Retailers have the opportunity to open on some of the days, but it's not compulsory. And so we didn't change that. I was away at the weekend and got a comment about someone that had arrived in this town on the Sunday in that afternoon and couldn't find anywhere to eat and ended up at McDonald's. Anyway, and then other 2 more things, and then I'll stop. The representation review. So that's going out for public consultation as well, but the preferred option is, and it is to stay within the law, that Thames keeps 3 district councillors, but we're only just on the percentage for that, and Mercury Bay picks up another one. So there would be an increase, and the rest stay the same. The community boards stay the same. So that's going up for consultation. And Airfield Land South, which is the potential areas for future Rose Park and swimming pool, that's plan change to change that land to Thames Recreation Active. That was approved to go out for public consultation, so that's in process. That is only about the plan change for the land. It isn't about whether you can build a swimming pool on it. So when we start getting all of those questions, this is stage 1 of a 2, 3, 4 stage process.
Yes.
So, but I'm hoping in my own little way that this will pull out some of the major issues, that if we can identify them and get a positive result, well then that will make the next stages more obvious for us.
So then can you background the discussion around the airfield that took place at council?
Basically, the recommendations and put out were approved. I think this general thing around the district, that it is a really important asset for us. And there wasn't a lot of discussion. Are you wanting me to highlight something that I've forgotten? Because, yeah, so it's basically, it was approved. We have people around the table who would double our and triple the development tomorrow there. And so, yeah, it went through.
So the meeting will first up in town. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, well, Sandra organised it and all of us three.
Yes,
were
I was
there.
advisor, so
Yeah.
I couldn't make it, so. And the interesting aspect of that is that that program started probably 10, 12 years ago. And we did send a delegation.
Yes, Peter Creston. Yeah.
To Japan.
Yeah,
And the initial thoughts were, you know, the exchange that was happening between the high school and the students, furthering that, enhancing that, and carrying forward. But there was also the view that, in fact, it might lead to some economic shared services. But that's never happened, you know, in a 10-year period. And I think, you know, it needs to elevate to that level. I think COVID will restrict that a little bit at this point, but it would be nice to think that, in fact, our town can start developing some economic value relating to that understanding as well. So
I think that visit was really useful, and Sandra, I know, has sent him further information about potentiality around Koku and stuff like that. So it was really good, I think, that he was here.
yes,
And next time you see Sandra, encourage him to keep going with that relationship, because he was certainly interested in economic development, wasn't he?
right.
And there was a lot that he didn't know, I understand. Was it, there was a Toyota factory.
But he found it and had a very good lunch at the Melbourne, so he was very excited about the Melbourne, so that's good.
And we had a huge spread over here, enough to feed about 40 people, but yeah, we had lunch, so.
So quite a few of you attended it. Thank you. Yeah. All right, Peter.
Yeah, look, if I could just, so let's read the report, just a couple of things to add. Firstly, around the airfield, we should be encouraged that it's a very consultative approach that is happening consistently now between the TCDC and the airfield users, and I think it's a really helping some things to come quickly. I didn't put my report, but I went to Brown Street. Just in case it's significant, but anyway. TPA, a couple of things on that. So the new chair is a co-chair with Matt, Pete and Warren Sly. Strategy you mentioned in your report, I think it would be good if we as a community would send a note to Heather to thank her for what she has done over the last 3 years, and getting it from the state, which is very significant. I think the new co-chairs will be really good for the next phase of TBA. I met with Matt the other day, and he's very realistic and pragmatic about actually what the TBA needs to do and the funding for it and all that sort of carry on. So I think that would be very helpful.
Thanks.
Can I make a comment on Peter's report?
Sure.
I'm just, I spent many a little time at the Nauru Bay Reserve, and I just noticed that in your report, there is some potential change around there. And I'd just like to, if at all possible, if it ain't broke, don't change things up there. That's just my personal opinion, and I don't know how broken it is, so it's just that it's a unique bit of dirt around, and there's a lot of houses around it, well used locally, but perhaps not so obvious to other people, but they have got a lot of foreshore. So yeah, I was just interested in what the problems were and how we could support them without too much interference.
Can you just say, is this the reserve where people want to continue to drive it over it to getting into their properties?
Yes,
No, okay.
yes.
Yeah, so that's illegal under the Reserve Act.
Right.
Yeah.
So the reason
Yeah.
And a lot of people have done a lot of encroachment on that reserve, not just that property over the years. That's just one example.
Yeah, I can well imagine. So what we see across the other side where people have, we've got it there. And so, yeah, we do have to be consistent. I understand that. But it's,
Yeah, the situation is you've got a whole bunch of people who for 100 years have been using the reserve in a certain way, and that's just the way it is, and what harm has been done. Apparently the trigger was somebody parked a camper van, one of the residents parked a camper van there to provide support for the dying mother. So they lived in the camper van and reported for a week. And a complaint was sent to the council about that. And of course, that is totally against the management. And then you look at that and the residents, it's the potential to take away a very wonderful facility they've had, being able to park their boat and drive across the reserve to, say they're doing, which has been common practice since 1960 something.
Well, I think
And so it's become an emotional issue.
That's what I was actually just at Nauru Bay. It's a residential joint, given us lots of other examples. I know Bay where the encroachment was quite shared and what have you, that have been built on the reserve. But, widely the reserve land is land and everything. And the people have.
just go through each year, it's a bit money, of course, but yeah, no problem. I'm just asking to direct things through the chair.
Yeah, yeah. But you see that in people doing that on the boom, on the roadside. It doesn't belong to them, but they've got these amazing gardens and trees and, yeah. So,
anyway, it's something to know.
I think the question to take away from that is that some of the amenity value people have enjoyed for a long, long time. It's got a caring community that you take there, and you need to value that and think about it before you make changes that will destroy that. But there's a lot of people actually that make choices to live there because some of these things are available to them. And to take that away takes away the reason it's not why you may be there. So I put that, on the ground there with you and just about those aspects related to that. I thought Colin and Aaron request the service report was very good. I thought you highlighted some very good points about its community, his community, the people that live in it, they care about it. So I think that was something to actually take notice of. So that.
Rose, is there an ongoing interaction between the residents and council?
At Nauru Bay or in general?
No.
If the residents have been using the access way for a long time, the time to address that would be in the reserve management plan. We've got a reserve management plan for the Thames and Thames coast reserves. And that is one reserve where I'm pretty sure it's identified that there are some matters that needed addressing. I can look it up if you'd like to. Not just that one. There's a number of reserves around the peninsula.
And it's probably going to have to stay on board. So it's not just be one or the other.
I'm sure that's the issue, isn't it?
I think one of the things that's interesting, Rose sent the link to the reserves management plan. I was stating at the number of reserves there are that don't exist. So you come up with the valley. Oh, it's not wasteland, that's council reserve. Oh, that's council reserve. Just below the house. Yeah.
Okay,
So, at one, we had a word on, they, retired from Canberra. And that land down there was lots of stories that flew around about what was going to go on with the Canberra, and I think we knew that was I guess parts without being called a reserve. So, I've been talking about when and if they're going to name that reserve. And, I spoke to Derek, who was going to do something about how to get about naming it, because there's something to do with regional council. But it is a reserve, and there are lots of people use it, like rugby dogs and things in there, because it's, you know, it's often in the road, it's really quite cool. We've got a car parking area next year, which I think council put in. People do tend more present there, and I don't think it's a bad thing to everything, but just on reserves as such, some of these places do need naming because they are, you know, they're really have a history, particularly that area, it has had a history, a lot of history. And it should be given a reserve name, so I think I listed it. Yeah. See what comes out.
Yeah.
But so it's not to get caught up with the one domain, you know, it's like there's a domain there, but trying to make sure that it has that real one, place that was significant at one stage for my.
indeed.
And the land was probably significant for Maori as well. It's not naming, and the naming, to take that into account.
There is. I lived up there for a long time, so when the Withball camp and everything all sort of went down in the middle of the and they were retiring from this campground, I mean, the whole community was sort of like a little bit broken. The talk then was that, and there was a CEO that was here, that I mentioned, who talked about, oh, you know, once we get back in there and get the building and all this sort of stuff, we'd definitely be 12 sections to sell it there because we do this and that. And so everybody was sort of like, it happened.
I have this report, I'll just quickly summarize some things. I took the liberty of just summarising the 10-year plan. And that was help from Michael as well, and from radiator stuff that I did CFM. The main things are the Guri water treatment plant, 30.4 million. A replacement pool that we have now in there, a light pool at the Thames Airfield south side, if that all reaches consent stages. The significance of having our Rose Park sports facility. Thank you, councillors, for listening to Thames Community Board's submission on that in terms of bringing it forward and treating it as a must-have in relationship to the sports fields and everything else. I think that's a really important thing. And for us to actually follow through any work programs and capital programs to ensure that that is followed through. I think the bill relating to Rose Park facilities as a way as opposed to the aquatic standard will be a lot more permissible in its consent issue, but it's hard to know. These processes are in place, going to go ahead. The wastewater plants, I mentioned those, and the challenge for us to find a budget for free cash improvement while that is happening. It's a very huge challenge. if we want some upgrades in Collins Street or along Main Street. Oakwood Valley Road, I'm just so pleased to see that extension happening to encourage some further subdivision and housing for Thames. I was pleased to see the budget to investigate some of our water cycle paths, just the current Bridge and loop on Maramaraki Road, hopefully linking up to the American Rail Trail. I mentioned the rates intake, some scary numbers there. You saw. Summarise the business. Doug and Michael again told me about the New Zealand meat processes to the old meat works in Tokyo, scaling up, and also Cape Engineering getting some qualified fabricators and molders and utilising a program that's now available called Apprenticeship Boost, which is really good. And they're taking on some apprentices thanks to that program. That's really good. TPA at AGM. The main point that I want to take out of that is the leadership that was given to that TBO over the years, and it would be really nice if the Thames-Coromandel board said, send a thank you letter to Eva, because she has been the powerhouse in relationship to the strong foundation that TBA might be able to take forward today. So, yeah.
In that, which I could be mixing metaphors too, but her dad passed away just a couple of weeks ago. Did you mention that at the same time, or just keep them separate? Separate, yeah.
Very separate.
Yeah.
I'm pleased to hear that, in fact, talking to Matt, that TBA has really taken on an advocacy role now. Just thought I'd like to mention that it's sort of a reprogram way they're thinking, and I think that's the way to go. So, in the picture there, also mentioned that, in fact, those that remember Goldfields.
I do.
Had a couple of pictures there. If the board fails with our excellent vision relating to an arts and culture and movie theatre in the existing site, approaching new management. So whether in fact they would be interested in a picture theatre, I don't know. It used to be where the toilets are, isn't it?
Went upstairs, though.
Yeah.
Upstairs. It's just a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what's something new?
Nothing, but there's going to be something. And I'm not sure that he told me what it was, but when I met with him to discuss, what his plans were, there was definitely someone who was talking to about upstairs. Oriental, yeah, definitely. Sorry.
That's all right. So the embassy theatre works 4 times a day in the sense that the owner is still pursuing the commercial part of what he wants to do there. And that while I've left all the information with Paul in terms of the connections that I've had and the people that might have the capability to help and indicated they would, it should have become a moving career in arts and culture setting and how we might put that together. So I'm hoping that does happen. The red strip in Poland and Mary Street. I continue to be approached for public interest in the red strip in Poland Street, and some confusion does exist regardless of how many complaints that have been cancelled. For using say pedestrians in the drivers. And I don't know whether you drive through there, or when I drive through there, you must be able to see the red strip that goes from the hairdressers to Carson. Honestly, I sort of think, you see people on the side there and think, well, I know the rules, and you people like, I will stop and pedestrians cross and stuff like that. So in a sense, it does act like a pedestrian crossing, but it's a courtesy crossing, stuff like that. And people are really confused about it. I'm sorry to say they are, and I just hope it doesn't end up being an accident in making.
My concern is that if we're aware of that and we don't do anything to rectify it, what liability does council have if there is an accident?
Well, that's a question to be asked, but also, what the signs might say. You know, I think there's the idea of proposing some signs.
People don't read signs.
Oh, well,
They just don't read signs.
So I'll just put it out there. I'll
Yeah.
just put it in front of staff and saying, you know, staff have responded really well with it. But I just note these concerns as a person.
So just,
To respond to.
is that something that we might be able to spend 5 minutes on in the workshop?
See why not, is that your? Rather than doing this report that we could have done. We could do that. Where are we? Nice to see you, Rose. Thank you for all the feedback you've been giving to people that have been in our public forums and with queries that they might have in the community. That really is good. And if you have those responses, you always pass by me, and it's great. Conditions of urinary toilets, I've heard away from that issue that crossing the road from State Highway to those toilets, I've heard the functionality and condition of those toilets was pretty poor. Also the wiper well. Well used.
Sure.
That came from using services.
From services.
Yeah.
I think I reported that stuff back to the clearance team.
I like that. Our room in favour with just about that. Mr. Guru, it was nice to attend that and thank you, Sheree, for really lovely opening for that. And to Ross. Well, you know, he's been very professional and patient and pretty good with that community. And even though statements in China, there's a respect that that community had for Ross Ashby. So that was really good to see, you know. You invite to speak for Great Power again. I can't do that on the 23rd of September. And Sheree has kindly said, yes, I'm going to talk about Thames-Coromandel water of Great Power. And they, so thank you, Sheree, for doing that. That's on the 23rd of September, 2021. Will do. Thank you.
Happy to make it exercise.
Second. Public excluded, we'll do that, then we'll break for a morning tea.
I'll move we go into public.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Robert. So, sorry, Ruth. We're in public excluded.
I just think that what you talk about, doesn't include the visitors.